You're listening to the Unbelievers Podcast.
There were several groups. One of the principal ones was the reptilians from the Orion complex.
Without any exaggeration, it was like being on fire inside.
Rats were eating them inside.
This stuff was in my mouth. It felt like it was 500 degrees. It was unbelievably hot.
My first question would be, were you a member of the Church of Satan, a card-carrying member of the Church of Satan? I don't understand.
There's always an argument for everything. You know, just because somebody can fake something doesn't necessarily mean it's full.
And we found a life form. And that's when I started shitting my pants.
So for the person who called, I am carrying an alien.
An alien baby. We cover it right here, okay?
Okay.
Something is happening. What is it? That's the question. So do UFOs exist? It depends on what you mean exist.
Adams, Tennessee, in 1817, the scene of one of the most notorious supernatural happenings in American history. A farmer named John Bell and his large family began experiencing poltergeist-like disturbances in their remote farmhouse. Initially, they thought it to be the work of rodents, but over time, the disturbances grew in magnitude, and it was soon revealed that the moans and sinister scratchings that plagued the Tennessee farmer were the work of no ordinary poltergeist, but of a witch, who wanted nothing short of death and agony for the man who unwittingly disturbed her bones. So get ready to scream as we explore the curse of the Bell Witch. Tonight on the program, where you continue to learn to unlearn everything you know. Hello and welcome to the Unbelievers Podcast. I'm your host, Russ Ryan, and I am joined tonight by my co-host in California, Drea Mora. Hello, Drea.
Hello.
And on Long Island, our soundboard engineer and producer, Rob Oakey.
Can you all scream like a witch?
What's happening?
Hi,
Man.
What's going on, guys?
Perfect clip. All right, how you doing, Rob? So I recently rewatched Poltergeist, and I hadn't seen that in so long, and I was like, I really want to, I know we did kind of Jeff. That doesn't really count, but I want to get into a Poltergeist, man. So we're going to do the Bell Witch tonight.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, has anything, like watching Poltergeist made me think back to being a kid and, getting freaked out by ghosts. But do you guys have any kind of paranormal stuff happen to you as like little kids?
Oh my God. So much. Yeah. I don't want to spill it all right now. Yeah. A bunch of things.
What about you, Rob? Anything weird ever happened to you?
Not off the top of my head that I can think of, but I work in some houses sometimes out here, and sometimes when I'm walking around these super old houses, I feel like someone is watching me, and you can feel like the spirits or whatever is going on in the house, the energy, whether it's like some sort of time loop thing, or it is spirits or whatever. Time. I don't know. I've definitely felt weird stuff in houses before, and since I was little, I've noticed that kind of when I'm in old places, I kind of get a weird vibe.
Yeah. I used to get freaked out, of course, by movies like that a lot when I was a kid, but weird thing that would happen to me is I used to wake up and just fall into my bed like I was floating over it. It was so weird.
What?
I can't
cool.
explain it.
That's
I would
insane.
wake up.
Sounds like Get Out.
I would wake up.
Yeah, Russ, Get Out.
I would be aware that I was awake for like a split second, and then I would fall like 2 or 3 feet and land in my bed. And it happened a good bit, and no one believed me except my older brother. And he would the only reason I think I remember it is because he would question me about it a lot. Like, is it still happening? And I,
would you get startled? Would you feel like you were scared when you would wake up?
No, I would just kind of wake up and I'd be aware I was awake. I'm like, huh? And then I would kind of be startled because I would land on my sheets. Very weird.
Yeah, that's really weird.
How old were you when that happened?
I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 and 5, or in that age group, age area, I guess. Well, let's get a little more weird. Yeah.
Weirder than that? Let's get weirder than that. Okay.
Let's see if someone can out weird baby Russ. Let's go and talk about the Bell Witch.
When night rains lash the hills around Springfield, Tennessee. Lightning flashes, thunder rolls down the valleys. The old-timers say the commotion up there is the Bell Witch, screaming through the night for the soul of one John Bell. John Bell chose another bride, and so the witch chose suicide. He broke his vows to this child of hell. The scorn witch cursed the name of Bell. Satan's sister they called the girl with coal black hair. All a whirl, her evil eyes and devilish ways, laid John Bell in his grave.
Dinner was the time of day that John Bell and his wife Mary and his 9 children had come to truly and deeply dread. Most evenings, as the 11 of them crowded around the long wooden table in their farmhouse at Adams, Tennessee, they waited for the thing that was tormenting them and haunting their homestead to make its noisy, nocturnal appearance. Usually, they didn't have long to wait before the scratchings and wailings, the scrapings and moanings began. There would be mysterious tappings at the windows, sinister raps on the door, and most chilling of all, macabre cries that came down the chimneys and filled the simply furnished room. The first time that this happened, in the spring of 1817, Farmer Bell summoned up the courage to go outside and see just who or what was causing the disturbance. However, as he prowled around the wooden building, he could find no one and nothing to account for the ghoulish phenomenon. He re-entered the farmhouse and looked at his wife in bewilderment. "I couldn't see anything wrong out there," he told her. "Maybe not," she replied, "but the scratchings and moanings went on just the same, and something must have made them." To pacify her, Bell put the disturbances down to giant rats, some of which had somehow got stuck in the chimney and could be smoked out. Accordingly, he set special traps for them, stoked up the fire, and waited for one or more of the supposed rodents to be caught or asphyxiated. However, days went by, and the traps remained empty, and no verminous bodies fell into the hearth. All that happened was the noises grew stronger and more frequent, until, about a month later, it sounded as if the pests were literally trying to gnaw their way into the farmhouse. John Bell's only advice to his family was to ignore the happenings. Repeated investigations in and around the building had revealed nothing amiss, and he wondered if the whole thing hadn't been caused by what he called animal sounds in the woods, and the wind, and the workings of our own imaginations. But this policy of leaving bad alone soon proved ineffective, and so provided the United States with its most famous case of persecution by a witch, in which the sorceress set out to kill the pious, hard-working, and respectable farmer. Before long, the Bells' growing distress, the entire house began to shake as the scratchings and howlings increased in force and volume. Several times, the family jumped up from the table and ran outside, fearing that the walls were about to cave in and the ceilings and roof collapse. There was never anything to be seen, although the racket was heard by several of the neighbors who lived some little distance from the farm. It was as if the house was possessed and somehow brought to evil life. One of them stated, "Everyone in the district feared it would be the turn of their home next, but it was only the Bells who were affected." Gradually, the family grew more or less accustomed to the nightly disturbances. Apparently, there was something that they would just have to put up with, and stoically, they decided to accept them for what they were, a noisy nuisance. And that is the introduction of the story of the Bell Witch and John Bell.
Wow. Another story of people just putting up with it. Well, we can't move. Let's just deal with it.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. It reminds me a lot of the beginnings of the Jeff story.
I was gonna say,
where,
it sounds like Jeff is back, man.
And
well,
now he's a witch.
Yeah, I know Rob has got his clip ready. He's already played it once, but this was in 1817. It's a good 100.
That's considerably earlier, and in a different country.
Yeah, and we're going to go on, it's going to go quite a different direction from that. But this is one of, probably the most documented cases of a paranormal phenomenon.
I was going to say, because one of the most popular witches is probably...
Can y'all scream like a witch?
Yeah, and hey, how'd y'all like that
Marie
song?
Laveau. Oh, it was cool. Yeah, I like it a lot. I already forgot how it went, but I know that I liked it when it played. I'm not just saying that.
There's something about it. You don't really make it as a witch until you get a cool folksy song about you.
God damn, I want a song about me. Somebody.
All right, get on it, AC or Avedon, somebody.
Oh, no.
I
was just kidding. I don't want a diss track, okay?
No, a folk diss. This is something.
Oh, I'll take a folk diss. That's a little more gentle. They'll say howdy first. I mean, like, they'll tip their hat to me first. I'll take that.
Well, let's see where this is going. It's just a noisy disturbance? I don't know. The beginning of the 19th century, the backwoods of Tennessee had their own fables and folk tales, which had been handed down from farming father to son. Mostly they dealt with spirits of the earth, benign presences which aided the men who toiled so long and so industriously on the land. There were tales of a few malign spirits, but nothing to account for the thing, whatever it was, which had chosen the bells as its victims. If we don't know them for the good and honest people that they were, said a neighbor, we'd have thought they were being punished for some crime or sin they committed. But there seemed no reason for what happened, no explanation. That, at least, was the state of affairs in January 1818. By then, life at the farm had become bizarre but bearable. Even so, John Bell wished that they could be released and allowed to return to their former uneventful way of life. One night after going to bed, with snow falling thickly and the wind lashing at the timbers, Mr. Bell suddenly began to feel cold. He and his family had already put up with the unusual, uncanny performance downstairs, and he was tired and wanting to go to sleep. However, for some unaccountable reason, the quilt on the bed kept slipping off him. Several times he pulled it back on, only to find that it was yanked away from him again. He decided it must be his wife who was doing this, and he told her to stop it immediately. "Things are bad enough around here," he grunted, "without a man having to freeze in bed at nights." There was a silence. Then Mrs. Bell said nervously, "It's not me, John. I haven't touched the quilt. There must be someone else in the room." As she finished speaking, the quilt suddenly seemed to come to life. It leapt from the bed, seemingly on its own accord, and lay writhing on the bare wooden floor. Mr. Bell jumped out of bed and began to stamp on the quilt as if it were on fire, and slowly and reluctantly, as he later put it, the bed cover quieted down and lay still. Before long, accounts of the strange happenings at the Bell farm began to appear in newspapers in Nashville and Memphis. From there, they were picked up by New York papers, and within a few more weeks, the homestead had become what one reporter called a place of occult pilgrimage, and ministers, doctors, and psychic researchers coming from hundreds of miles away to investigate the mystery. Some of the visitors feared that their journey would be in vain, and that on arriving at the Bells, they would be treated to nothing more than gossip, secondhand anecdotes, and speculation. But the spirit, as it was then commonly known, did not let them down. It was as if the thing knew what was expected of it, stated a Baltimore journalist, and was determined that no one who traveled there would be disappointed. It obligatingly put on its act even without being asked to, and if you did speak to it, it would mostly do whatever was requested. At a few words, therefore, pictures would fall off the walls, tables would turn on their sides, chairs would prance about, and once, even a few somersaults. Cutlery would parade up and down on the floor. China dishes and cups would march merrily along without harming themselves.
I'm picturing freaking Beauty and the Beast.
I love Beauty and the Beast. It's the best.
Yes.
I was literally terrified. Like I can feel my eyes like watering, and then that happened, and now I'm laughing.
It's almost as terrifying as the remake that Disney made a couple years ago.
Oh,
it almost sounds as terrifying as the live action Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I never saw that. I heard wasn't Ewan McGregor like a spoon or something in it?
What the hell?
It was not great.
I have not even heard about this. What the hell? Okay, I don't want to.
Consider yourself lucky.
Okay, I do. I'm lucky.
But the quilt, I like the quilt when he's blaming his wife, and hey, we all know what that's like.